Hey, I'm your host, Scott Dr. Jigs Goldfine, welcoming you to another episode of Where'd You Get Your Funk From? Shout out to PTFI for the funky theme music. For this episode, I'm pleased to welcome France-based funk saxophonist, singer, and composer Eric Shrizz Rohner, who's made a name for himself as a member of the HornDogz horn section and has been featured on several releases, including the Malka Family and 2021's fantastic album by Dafonk titled So Horny. His most recent project is half of the duo Shrizz and Maze. Their debut album, Dope Frequency, is described as Martian funk topped with rock and jazz elements. Guests on it include George Clinton, Greg Boyer, and the late Amp Fiddler. Eric, thank you for being here. How are you?
Pretty good, feeling pretty good right now in the US of A.
Yeah, well,
Pretty,
welcome stateside.
yeah, I'm telling you, it's feeling good. I don't want to go. It's feeling, starting to feel at home over here.
Well, we love to have you. So, the more funk we can get here in the States, the better for sure.
Okay, okay. But unfortunately, my stay is coming to an end, so it's gonna be a couple more days, and then actually, I'm at Greg Boyer's house in Baltimore right now as we speak.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Well, this will post, by the time it posts, you'll be back across the Atlantic there. But,
Yeah.
what brought you stateside this time?
Well, it was a different constellation of different given situations. First one being I just had this month where I kind of could foresee that I had very few gigs going on the in on the on in my area. So I kind of canceled the one or two things I had because I wanted to desperately. It's been a while that I wanted to come over, and also the actual purpose of me being here is I wanted to kind of make that step over here after having been over here 2 years ago, which was kind of a short stay, 2 week stay where I got to record with George. I flew over here. I flew over to Tallahassee in order to. It was around that time when the pandemic was still going on and there wasn't any. I couldn't foresee. It's George hasn't come over ever since the pandemic. I think hasn't come over to Europe ever since. So it was like I couldn't do it on an online thing. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm closing the album. I'm finishing the album for Dope Frequency, and I really can hear George on it. Let me attempt. It was a really risky mission, but I succeeded in getting him on the record, which was quite a yeah. I was really happy, but it was an absolute risky mission, with no guarantee at all that it would happen. So I might as well gotten back to Europe without having him on the album. But I hung out in Tallahassee and it happened, which was, due to a lot of coincidence. First of all, I didn't even know if he was going to be in town, but he happened to be. And Danny Bedrosian helped me a lot, which I have to mention at this point. He really helped me because he lives in Tallahassee as well. But that was 2 years ago, and then now that the album is out, I feel like I need to come over to America where the music comes from. You know, that's where its origins lies.
Hmm.
Funk, jazz, blues, soul, what have you. This is where it comes from, and I have a feeling nobody really knows. I need to promote it a little bit. I need to put the word out here that that it's out. And I said, I wanted to get with the contacts I already have for over all these years because I'm at P Funk. In first time I saw P Funk was 1990 at the Montreux Jazz Festival, and then with the years I gradually got to know them little by little. And of course, the first ones acquaint with is the horns. Because me as a saxophone player, which I had. Let me yeah, I play the saxophone, so those are the first, and then gradually you get to know everybody else.
Yeah, well, that kind of leads into the first question I like to do on the show, which is the name of the show, which is where'd you get your funk from? So it has two components. One is, where'd you get your funk from initially? What brought it to you? How did you embrace it? And then the second part is how being in funk has informed who you are as a person and as a musician.
Okay, so where do I get my funk from?
Yeah, where'd you first get your funk from?
First, um, well, I reckon, hmm, I was always, I guess I always had that funky state of mind, and I never knew. And it was a search. I was discovering music. As a musician, and we in Switzerland we were pretty far. I grew up in I was born in Africa and grew up in Africa until I was 10 years old, but then settled over to Switzerland, to the German speaking part. And, from 10 years onwards, I grew up there until I was 30. But I was fortunate enough to grow up close to venues that had high class acts, from the States, Eddie Harris, on the jazz side, but also for Eddie Harris is also quite funky. So I discovered, those guys. I discovered, even in the pop, back in the pop, when I was in my teenage, years, I used to listen to Wham and all that stuff, and that can get quite funky if you listen to that stuff. There's horns in there, and it's quite funky if you listen to it now. There's a couple of funky tracks in there, but I never knew. I just knew I like that. I like that stuff. But then Montreux Jazz Festival is maybe a well-known event worldwide where a lot of where everybody comes and performs in July. So I went to see that in 1989 for the first time, and I saw Herbie Hancock for the first time on stage. I did not know a single note of Herbie Hancock at the age of 18. And Miles Davis, I saw Miles Davis with Foley back then. I did not know who Foley was, of course, no idea. And I saw Miles and I saw Herbie Hancock at the Headhunters. But what most marked me was that concert of Herbie Hancock, and it was called Herbie Hancock and Headhunters Roman 2. And you had Wawa Watson in there and Dougal Chancellor, Daryl Jones, Bill Evans on the saxophone, and Mino Cinello on percussion. And I discovered the Headhunters sound. He actually redid those Headhunters songs from the Headhunters albums.
Hmm.
Be it Man Child, Secrets, Thrust, you know. And I discovered that music live on stage, and I was like, what is this? I couldn't believe it. I was like in a dream. And it was in a like this. I'm getting closer. This is the closest I am getting to what I'm. I was really discovering, and so on hungry to discover new music. And I was like, this is the bomb. I need to go. This is my universe. That lasted for 1 year, and the next year, 1990. The same way I discovered Herbie Hancock, I discovered George Clinton. He came on stage at 4 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock in the morning. There was a lot of acts playing that night. So it started at 7 p.m. and it ended at 7 a.m. It was called the long night. Can you imagine? They wouldn't do such a thing anymore. That doesn't exist anymore. The long night at Montreal. That was run by a guy called Claude Knopps, who raised the festival. You know, who funded the festival, founded the festival. And he brought George Clinton in 1990, 90. The record was out then, Cinderella Theory. And I didn't immediately click, to tell you the truth, because I had already, prior to the 4 a.m. performance at 4 o'clock in the morning, I had seen Take Six, I had seen Vinx, I had seen the Yellow Jackets, I had seen Sting came on stage. The Andy Summers group came on there. There's a whole lot of stuff. And after P Funk All Stars, Les McCann, who's a piano player back with Eddie Harris and all that, he performed. So just give you an idea, 6:30 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. I think P Funk played from 4 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. And at 7 a.m. Les McCann went on, and he did. I think he went until 8:30, 9 a.m. It's just, So at 4 a.m., I was completely worn out, already. And P Funk goes on stage like this monster act with 25 musicians comes on stage. I have never heard a single note of P Funk prior to that moment. And completely, like, crushes me. But my mother, she recorded. I instructed my mother how to record that album, because it was that concert. It was broadcast on radio. I have a perfect quality audio quality of that gig. So when I came out, I mean, I witnessed the gig, right? But I didn't understand anything. It was so wild. Um, but the next day I got home and I said, I want to listen to that gig one more time. And I stuck into that. It's to me until today, it's the Bible. That very concert is the funk Bible to me. Every time I want to be reminded of the state of art, of how funk is supposed to sound, or P-funk is supposed to sound, I listen to that album and I get a huge slap, a wake up call. It's like, okay. I'm like, okay. It's
Reset. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, okay. I say, okay, okay, I got it. Let me continue. It's like yeah, it's like the learning. It's like what you look up and in order to orientate yourself, get that lesson. Get
You were already playing sax though by that point, right? When did you start playing sax?
I started playing clarinet when I was 7 years old in Africa. And then we went over to Switzerland. We moved to Switzerland when I was 10, and then we continued playing clarinet. And at the age of 15, I got tired of the clarinet. It just didn't sound good. And since the saxophone was in the same family of reeds, the reed woodwind instruments, saxophone, oboe, what have you, saxophone works with the reed. I said to myself, and I saw what the saxophone, what role the saxophone had in music, and I said, I want to do that. I want to switch to the saxophone. It sounds way it sounds way better to me. So I jumped on the saxophone.
On a tenor or alto?
I actually, in the beginning, they always, they always want you to start with the alto, and then little by little I switched to the tenor.
And
So.
and who are some of your influences on the sax that hopefully we've heard of?
Um, yeah, let's say tenor saxophone players. I really dug Eddie Harris. Still dig Eddie Harris. Also, I got to see him, which was very fortunate, you know. And actually, I forgot to tell you, there's a venue 2 kilometers away from where I grew up in Switzerland, where my parents still live, and there's a 2 kilometers away. I could go there by bicycle, and they had first class acts going on as well. So I got to see Eddie Harris when I was, 20 years old, maybe. and a whole lot of stuff. And then anyway, saxophone players who would that I my favorite saxophone players are also let's say Branford Marsalis is an incredible saxophone player to me. Kenny Garrett, Eric Leeds. Eric Leeds is possibly one of the I don't know how is really he knows how to incorporate that. He just comes up with a language that I've never that's pretty unique. He incorporates a lot of jazz language, bebop language into that funky into in a funky way,
Hmm.
and it's pretty is unique to me. I love transcribing stuff coming out of his horn. So, who else? There's a guy called Joe Blow who I love. I don't know if you know him, I guess not. He came out of Foley's band when 1997 Foley came over with his band from Columbus, Ohio. You could check that out on the YouTube. And he did owns his own songs, but he did a lot of covers like Children of Production. He played, he played a Foreplay. He did his own version of Foreplay. And that band, if I don't know if you know it,
Well, I know Foley, but not that band.
you should check out. It's on YouTube. There's a version of Children of Production with, their 10-piece band out of Columbus, Ohio. By the way, Kevin Oliver on guitar, who now today plays with P-Funk. He's from Columbus, Ohio. Uh yeah, it's just a
I'll have to,
out, outstanding band.
yeah, I'll check that out. When you mentioned Eric, the Headhunters, I just was smiling because I remembered when I first heard Man Child when I was like in middle school or something, and it was my first exposure to Herbie Hancock, and it blew my mind completely, and I became a lifelong fan. So that Headhunters music from that era, man, unbelievable.
So you almost got like the same kind of entrance.
Yeah, and I was playing out. I played sax in school, so I was
Okay.
alto player. Yeah,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that's the Manchild album, right? That Wawa Watson
Oh yeah, hang up your
kick,
hang-ups and all those tracks.
exactly kicking off, and you're
Unbelievable.
like, what is this? That actually happened after seeing Herbie Hancock, I think, in Montreux. I have that concert too, by the way. Another stellar, incredible, stellar performance by Herbie Hancock.
Well, that festival is one of the, best for capturing performances on video and audio. And, thank goodness that they've preserved a lot of the great acts through the years, performing like that.
Yeah, yeah, he was a pioneer somehow. Or he was like, he just came up. This is a genius. There's a documentary that they just put out, a three-part documentary about the Montreux Jazz Festival, how they started out, and it goes from part one is like it's got a 3 hour thing, and part three, you see George, and and it's that gig I just talked about, 1990. They and have been, they never released that is still in the vaults there. And the quality is all, they introduced Sony HD TV for the first time at that festival. They had them Japanese coming over to record. So he's got like first top-notch quality going on.
Mm. Well,
Uh,
they released it for them from a different year, I think, was a commercial release of one of those Montreux Festival appearances for P-Funk.
Say it again.
I think they released one of the P-Funk appearances at Montreux, like commercially,
Yeah.
but not 1990. I think it was
No.
a later year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I don't know what it was. Maybe, yeah, 2004, I think, or I don't remember, or late 90s. I don't remember. Yeah. But that very first gig is untouched to me.
I believe it.
Do you,
I
have you,
believe
do
it.
you have you heard it before?
I'm not sure. I mean, I've heard,
It's
I mean, there's so many I've heard, it's hard to like
Yeah,
pinpoint, but um, I mean, they still had so many of the originals then too,
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You got Scheider, you got Cardell, you got Peanut, you got this the guy on drums. We rarely saw, and to me, is doing an phenomenal job. Is Tony Thomas, and there's David Spradley on stage. The P
Yeah.
Funk horns, Skeet. The band is hurting.
It's probably Hampton and Blackbird.
Hampton and Blackbird.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and Cordell playing guitar as well. Scheider is in incredible form, doing ad libs like you need to rewind 20 times to believe what he just sung.
So at what point did you decide, hey, I'm going to start trying to record some of this funk stuff?
Mm, I got in pretty quickly actually. Well, yeah, that was a band I was with in Switzerland back then. We did a record. We started, that was possibly the first funky record I put out with a band called In Effect, and it's not out on. You can't find it. We should put that on Spotify actually. It's a pretty cool record, I would say. Um, so that happened. We didn't get that out. I mean, we recorded something before that, and we started sampling P-Funk stuff. It was yeah, and that came out in '95, I think, or four or five. I think it was five. And then the other album, we really worked a long time on it, too long. It came out in 1999, around there, 1999, 2000. So that was the first thing we put out back then. I put out with the band I was playing with. And then, I got a little bit tired of Switzerland and I moved to London to do some studies over there. Wasn't too funky though over there, but I started playing with some Nigerian um, Afrobeat artist, piano player for Fela Kuti, if that rings a bell. It's called Dele Sosimi. Uh, and he's in London. He's based in London. So I got to know in those 3, 4 years when I was in London, I was doing stuff over there. But then I got back to Switzerland. Pretty much what happened is I forgot to tell you what happened in '92 is I discovered another band. So 2 years after I had seen George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Stars, there's another band that hits my town, my hometown, Bern in Switzerland, which is the capital of Switzerland. A band out of Paris called Malka Family. So they came over to my city, and I wasn't I had my French in school, but I wasn't speaking it and not understanding it very well. But a friend of mine who was studying like in the French speaking part of Switzerland, who was, he told me, hey, first went to the French part speaking part before coming to my town, and he had seen them. He said, man, we need to go and see this band. You need to go and see this band. They're great. There's like as like a European answer, French answer to P-Funk. So yeah, let's go and check them out. So we checked them out, and that was a very crucial step also to meeting those guys because they were out of Paris, France, and they were pretty serious. They were really pretty serious musicians, and Switzerland is a small country. I always found myself like I need to get out of Switzerland in order to witness the more international scene, you know. So that's what I did, and that was a chance. That was the opportunity via Malka Family. Although I didn't speak the French too well, meanwhile I speak it, and I moved back and forth with Paris because I started playing with them, and I always looked up to them. And they keep on. They still actually working on. They have been releasing. They disbanded for about 17 years and they got back together. So they're putting out a brand new album as right now. They're still they're in the studio working on it. So I'm in that field of musicians there.
What were the crowds like back then for their shows?
Oh yeah, they were wild. They were wild. Yeah, I witnessed a couple of those shows. Although I wasn't a firm member, I wasn't a permanent member back in the day. I played every now and then, but it enabled me. That was the closest I could get to P-Funk was via Malka Family. And then, I never moved to Paris because I never wanted to, and I never spoke the language. They were just musically speaking, they were my reference, in Europe. I'm not speaking about George because every time George came over, George, I saw so many George Clinton P-Funk gigs, at least 100, and that was a wake up call in itself. Every time it was a huge slap in the face.
Did you try to get backstage? When did you first meet any of them?
I went backstage, yeah, in 1992, yeah, in Geneva. I had these family series. It just was out. The first one of a Japanese.
Go
Uh,
for your
pre-
funk.
Go
Yeah,
for your funk.
yeah.
Volume one was out. The white cover. They were beautifully done. The
Like the dog,
Japanese.
dog on it. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So I went with them. They went back. I went with them back. And I think they had never seen the Japanese pressing back then. They went, "Oh, whoa, whoa." George went, "Wow, man, you got more of them." And I think I gave him a copy. They were super expensive. I was like, "Yeah, you can." I gave him. I think I had about four or five. We always used to order from Japan about a couple. So Scheider and they were all like, "Wow, wow." They were seeing this cover. I think they were seeing this cover for the first time. So I met them back there, and a crucial, very marking moment was possibly 93. I would say it was 93. A year later, they played another town in Switzerland. And we by this time we were really familiar. We got familiar with the music. We dug up all the albums. A friend of mine was a huge collector. He bought all the vinyls, and I checked them out, because I couldn't buy all that stuff. But he bought. We went all these record fairs and dug Osmium out, dug this out. Yeah, man, this one. There's so much to discover. We were hooked. Parlet, wow, what is this? And
And also realizing that they're all the same band, basically,
yeah,
got
yeah,
all
yeah,
those
yeah,
different names. Yeah.
exactly. So now here they play in 93 in a place called Winter Tour in the east, in the German speaking part of Switzerland. And we had printed some T-shirts. We came out. Let's do a part. Let's do a part. Let's do a part because we couldn't get we couldn't get a hold of any T-shirts back then, so we did our own T-shirt, which was the Parliament logo in the front. Put a glide in your stride, a dip in your hip, or come up to the mothership, and in the back was the Funkadelic logo. I think shit, goddamn, get off your ass and jam, and it was real good quality. And here we come with about 40 samples of this shirt, right? And we meet Scheider before Gary Scheider comes out, and I say it says Scheider because we didn't. I think I didn't have any tickets back then, and I just called Scheider in the street then in front of the venue. Said, "Hey man, I think I was wearing the shirt." He was like, "Man, oh man, can I get one?" Yeah, 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 I got some. And they went back to the trunk of the car and they opened opened the car, and as he sees all these t-shirts, and, wow, man. I say, yeah, man, have some. I think he took all of them, and he just distributed them among the band, and that was it. That was it. That was like, from then on, I always they always had my back in Europe. Always, hey man, come on over here. That now they call me Horn Dog. Shida didn't call me Horn Dog, but Horn Dog is a band that came up in the 2007. When did Horn Dog come? Horn Dogs come out 2012. And the Lige Curry came up with that name. Because I was, back and forth on Skype chatting with we were into recording some stuff, and one day he always came up with some creative stuff every day on we were chatting on Skype, and one day he said, "Yo, Horn Dogs, what put some mustard on my put some mustard on my horn," or so. I don't know what he said. I said, "Horn Dogs, that's the word. That's our name." So he came up with the band. He's our godfather, actually. And yeah, so there you go.
When did you make them aware that, hey, I'm a sax player and I also play funk and
Um, hmm. I think that's a good question. When was that? I just yeah, I guess it was I think they found out pretty quickly, or Mike Clip was living in Paris for a while, and he quickly understood that I was part of that family, the Malka family. And little by little, uh I guess, I don't know. I just I always hung with the horns, Greg, Benny. I just admired them and the way they sound as a section, and it was all about that. But it's a good question. I think it wasn't until we kind of started HornDogz, because with HornDogz we got all these people. I reached out to all the P-Funk guys. I got Greg Boyer on the album. Had a session with Amp Fiddler in a hotel room. Amp Fiddler is actually somebody I have to mention who, during my London stay, I knew Amp Fiddler from the 90s with P-Funk, and then he suddenly comes with the Waltz of the Ghetto Fly. I happened to be in London. Before I moved to Paris, I was in London, like I mentioned before, and I suddenly saw in this magazine I was they had out that comes out on a weekly basis. They mentioned, hey, Amp Fiddler's coming to town with his to the Jazz Cafe, which is a venue, very famous venue over there. Presenting his own album. I said, okay, Amp is doing his own thing, so I better pull up over there. And I went over there, and I just before the show, and I met him at the gig before the show, and he said, "Hey, how you doing?" "Oh, yeah, man, I remember you, blah blah blah." And I just, I showed up with my horn. I was, I don't know, 30 years old, kind of in abroad for the first time. I'm like, "Oh man, this might be my chance." And Amp was super cool, and I asked him, "Do you think it's possible I could sit in?" And he said, "You know what? Check out the show first," because I didn't know that. He said, "Check out the show first," which I did, and because the next day he played again in another venue in London, and I said, "Okay, meet you to," and then he let me sit in on the second show. So that was a very encouraging step there. And for the P Funk guys, and for mostly Amp to realize who I was. And we started recording horns for his stuff that he's never released until now. Really good stuff. And we almost ended up on the Motor Booty City thing, but did we end up on one of the albums of Amp? I don't think so. But we ended up touring with Amp together with Tony Allen, Andre Fox. This was like a project that was called From Detroit to Lagos. And you had Tony Allen, drummer for Fela Kuti, in there. Andrew Fox amp. Des Andres, who's a DJ out of the Detroit scene. Who else? TY is a rapper out of the London scene who passed, meanwhile, unfortunately. But that was we were able to go on like on a world tour with Amp, which was amazing.
What
And
year
then,
was that about, did you say?
huh?
What year about was that?
That was 2012. Yeah, 2012. And then, and then he came with his own band. He kept on coming quite often to Europe with his own band, and I sat in with that band. And we never toured with that band, but we sat when he came to Paris. We always sat in with the horns and did tracks, performed two or three tracks with him on stage. And he Amp was always very encouraging and very. That's what he was all about. Amp. I miss him so badly.
When did you do the track with him that's on the Dope Frequency?
That was done in. Let me think. It was the album came out in 2014, the HornDogz album. So it must have been.
No, no, I mean the Shrizz and Maze
Oh, you're
track.
talking about the True Love.
Yeah.
That was done 2020. Well, we had the track ready and I was running after him for quite a while, but until he got it done by 21, I think. It was January 21 round there that he finally recorded it in his base in Camp Amp in his basement in Detroit. Yeah, and
Okay.
I was blown away by his performance on because he also plays keys on that. He plays some Moog thing. I don't know what he some kind of tweaking thing going on he does, which is incredible. Also, if you listen to the solo tracks, it's just like whoa, mind blowing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Rest in peace for Amp. I was
Yeah.
desperately trying to get him on the show, but he just wasn't doing well. So shame.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Real shame.
yeah.
So
So,
and yeah,
well, I was going to ask you, when did you first get to meet George?
George, I first met like 92. I would say backstage there. Giving him the go for your funk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you get much of a like sense of him, or did that come later, or what was your takeaway of meeting George Clinton?
It was kind of hard for me because I couldn't understand that American English, you know, the black American English. It was like I was like I had to get my head around that sound, because I'm coming from the, like British part there. I grew up in a British colony. My first language is English in Africa. That's the first language I learned. I only spoke English until I was 13 years old, and then I had to learn German. But when I met George, I was like, I always said, damn, I can't understand a word, even in interviews. And now, meanwhile, I got him. But I never, but but if I always, I mean, he fascinated me from day one. I mean, like I said, 1990, I didn't understand a thing, but 1991, they came back to Montreux Jazz Festival and they did another horn, and they did another gig and they performed again, and that's where I really started checking him out on stage because that's what absolutely fascinated me. I had never seen anybody perform that in that way. Never that was it was the sound and it was the way he presented and performed and emceed and Sarah, it's a ceremony. It's just
Ringmaster, yeah, everything.
the way he refereed the show, it's just like that actually blew me away, and that's where my eyes were on. I was studying the way He was performing from gig, from concert performance to every performance. I was checking him out, and I learned so much. I learned so much. It absolutely revolutionized, and that's what it felt at home, you know. It felt like, okay, I found what I have been looking for. I
Mm.
finally found the essence of what I've been looking for. Here we go. And I mean, yeah,
So the only
George,
the only sax player that you've seen with them then is Greg Thomas, right?
the only saxophone player is Greg Thomas that I've seen with him, and
You never saw
bef
Maceo, right?
I never saw Maceo, and that was just a couple of months before that show in Montreux. He had played some. I think they just went separate ways, and Maceo was starting to do his own thing. But I never saw Maceo with P Funk. But I saw another saxophone player later on that they had for a while, a tenor player from the Baltimore uh scene, Reginald, I'm not, Scott, something like that. Could be
Hmm.
Reggie Scott. I think that's his name.
Not sure.
Yeah. There's a couple of footages out there. You have to search though. I think Gre I think he was Greg wasn't Boyer wasn't in the band anymore, and they brought him in.
Okay. Yeah, I know Greg took several years off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but basically, Greg Thomas was the one and only sax player I knew with
Yeah.
P-Funk. Hmm.
Yeah, he's a little dynamo, Greg Thomas. And he can
Yeah,
sing.
he could sing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, did you ever get to, get on stage with those guys?
Yeah,
When did that
I
happen?
it was the most frightening. I guess I've never been so scared in my life. Like getting on stage the first time with George. I always try to pull it off in a way, but never succeeded in doing it, and I never knew how to pull it off. How, and I just, how am I gonna let these guys know that I just want to, get on stage or sit in on one track if it's possible. And I never. It was always like I idolized them so badly. That also was something that kind of made made them also almost appear untouchable. Because I just adored what they were doing, and I was, but I just tried to get with them, but it didn't happen until it was 2000 and let me think, what was that? 2009. Gary Scheider was still alive, and I went on stage, and I just stood there with my horn like a like an idiot in the corner there with my horn, trying to let them know that I'm there, and it's on YouTube. There's this guy called, what's his name? Bush Tales.
Oh, yeah.
He filmed that.
Okay.
He filmed that moment. He caught that on camera, and I was just like, it was in Rotterdam actually, on their Holland tour, and I just stood there, and like almost wanted to give up and say, what the hell am I doing here? This is pathetic, what I'm doing. I didn't feel good at all. There, I said, man, I gotta make it happen somehow. And then I stood there on the stage in the far right corner. I think George suddenly kind of understood, with the concert going on. He suddenly called me up, you know, and yeah, that's the George. George was they're just open-minded enough. Those guys, he just called me up, and that was my first stint, if you call it that way, there with P Funk. Scheider was still there. And then the next year, they came to Europe, or they came on their European tour, and they didn't have their horns with them. And I got that information up front. And so a friend of mine had seen them in Holland as well, and I didn't go to Holland. He came down and said, "Man, I saw P-Funk, but they didn't bring their horns. But you know what? There's one moment. There's really the horns are really missing. It's in Mothership Connection. You know, we know how to play that. We should go on stage, man." I said, "Man, that could be a good thing, man." And we started practicing. We brushed up for the downstroke Mothership Connection and I don't know, remember what, two or three songs. And they came to Paris without their horn section, and we were kind of, and I was like, man, this is our chance because they didn't come with the horn section. Let's get on the damn stage. And now my folks are getting nervous, and I had to literally force them and go ahead. We went on stage in 2010, and I went, I went up front because I knew them best. But what did they do? The sound engineer on stage, the stage engineer saw the horn section on stage. Oh, okay, here's a horn section. They just put up two mics, set up two mics, and we were ready to blow Mothership Connection up for the downstroke, and and George was blown away. I still have a photo of that moment. And George was blown away, and he said, "You know what, guys? I want you to join us on the last five shows of this tour." And we went on tour for the last five shows with George. And that
Wow.
was that was a definite, that's when HornDogz started. Because that was 2010, and we started recording 11, let's start 12. Yeah, 11, 12, we started recording, doing the HornDogz thing. So, from then onwards, we were the HornDogz. We
That
were
was the
even we
birth
were,
on
mm,
through P Funk was the birth of the HornDogz.
exactly.
Yeah.
And we recorded some stuff on some George stuff that still hasn't been released. And George is on the next HornDogz album on two tracks that still hasn't been released. And this he came down to our studio in Paris because he had 2 days off after the Paris show. I went backstage and talked to him and said, "Hey, you're in town you have 2 off days. You want to come down to the studio?" And he told me, "Yeah, why not? Why not? But you know what? Let me sleep. Let me sleep I got 2 days off. I'll holler at you in 2 days." He hollered me the next. He hollered at me the next day. He was already ready to go. He's got this call. "Hey, George wants to come to the studio." I said, "Okay, here we go, man." And then we quickly got everything together, and this was 2016, and it's still not out. But we're close to releasing that thing. So we got 13 on that record as well. Besides, George is on two tracks, and the 13 is on one track, and Shrizz is on one track.
Well, I mean, the So Horny was great. I love that record. That was really, really good. It was in
Yeah,
my top, 20 list or whatever for that year.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good album.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, so what did you learn from P Funk in terms of how you arrange the horns that you play?
Um, the flavor, the way that the horns are written, you know, from the Parliament records, the Fred Wesley flavor, the Fred Wesley arrangements, the way P Funk arranged their riffs, all that you incorporate while by listening to those arrangements, and of course playing them, you get to discover the way it's arranged, you know. And I can also, meanwhile, reach out to Greg Boyer and ask him because we sometimes do a P-Funk tribute with our band in Paris, and if I'm uncertain about specific riffs here and there and voicings, I got first class source I can contact and tell him, hey Joe, hey Greg, how does this riff go? Because I got it on the live record, but can you like really tell me how because we want to get it right. And he always supplies me with charts and everything. So yeah, Greg is amazing, man. Greg.
When you talk about voicings, though, how do you decide whether, it should be more brass or more reed or, what that balance should be in what you do?
Well, we got the ingredients we have. The HornDogz actually only two players. It's me and Gilles, who's the trumpet player for Malka Family. Gilles Garin, his name. Gilles the Freak, his artist name. He's got a profound knowledge of arranging, by the way, and he's we're the HornDogz.
I didn't
Him,
realize there was only two. Okay.
only two, and the guitar player is actually part of the HornDogz too, Rico, who was part of the Malka Family as well. So the HornDogz actually two horns and a guitar player, but the HornDogz are also just the horn section. When we play with other people, we still call HornDogz. But
Yeah, 'cause
yeah, I mean,
I see you had guests on that record that a couple of trombone tracks and
yeah,
yeah, okay.
yeah. We always. I mean, it's always pretty. It makes sense to add a trombone player. So we got Fred Wesley on the HornDogz album. We got Greg Boyer on the HornDogz album. Who else? Yeah, those are the two. I
What's
guess
this? Simon Andrew?
Simon and Andrieux. Yeah, is a
Yeah.
French. Yeah, he's our trombone player in Paris. Yeah. So there you go.
Um, so how did the new duo come to be? And also, how'd you get the nickname Shrizz?
That's a good one. That's a good question. um, that's a guy, the guitar player Maze. He's from that very first band. He's Swiss, and I still go back to Switzerland quite regularly. My parents live there. My brother lives there. Like I live in Paris, so it's not too far away. And I started off recording with Maze, who's the guitar player of that band back then. But we never really finished. We got out of sight. We lost track of, like following up on the recordings we did, and it just it came to a moment in time, and with HornDogz, we released an album. We released two EPs, and I just thought, you know what, I wanna actually, because I sing also. And I wanna do something where I'm appear as a lead singer. So that was possibly I was kind of I'm still the lead. I'm still also kind of in a leading role in the HornDogz on stage, but musically speaking, I wasn't really fulfilled. So I wanted to do those tracks that were unfinished with Maze, and we dug them out and started working on them, and little by little, and the pandemics helped us really get on it because there was nothing else to do. So we got that out, and Shrizz actually the Malka family, they started to call me Shra, SHR. You can see me on the records. They call me Shra, SHRAA, SHRAA, But that's also something related to because we were speaking Swiss German in Paris, who with a language that they don't understand, and they believe they heard that Shra all the time. So they called me Shra, which is again based on a character out of the Arabic world. This is very twisted, but the whole name about Shra and Shrizz, and Shra became Shrizz due to the Snoop era. Everything became is. So they started calling me Shrizz, and then actually I found out that Shrizz actually means something in the American Urban Dictionary. It has to do with mushrooms, like how do you say hallucinating mushrooms?
Well, we always call them shrooms, but yeah.
Yeah, shrooms, but I guess shrooms became Shrizz. And then, eventually Shrizz, we were looking for a name. How are we going to call this new thing? He's called Maze. That's easy. How am I going to call him? Shrizz and Maze. Didn't sound good to me. Shrizz and Maze. We came up with Shrizz and Maze. And that's basically my name, Shrizz, and his name, so Shrizz and Maze.
And who's influenced you singing wise?
Singing wise,
Yeah.
Scheider, Glenn Goins. Uh, from the male side, you know. Who else? I love Omar. Do you know Omar?
Not sure.
Soul singer from London. Incredible.
Oh yeah, heard the name, but I don't really know his music.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's incredible. Stevie Wonder, of course. But Glenn Goins, Steve Boyd. Steve Boyd. Belita Woods. Now I'm getting over to the female side, Chaka Khan,
Oh,
you know. It's just like who else? I mean, it's D'Angelo. Oh, D'Angelo is like on another page.
I'm looking at the tracks from the new record, Dope Frequency. Congratulations on it. I know it's been out for several months, but it's still your latest release, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Here it is.
yeah, there you go on vinyl. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Follow Me. Definitely hear like a little bit of Minneapolis. Actually, you mentioned Eric Leeds, but I was curious, did you ever get to see Prince or Eric Leeds perform?
No,
No.
unfortunately, I got to see Eric Leeds, but without Prince. He came with his jazz thing.
Hmm.
So, did I see? I'm wondering if I had seen Eric Leeds. Not sure with the fun. I haven't.
Some of my favorites on here, for what it's worth. Evidence, real like bouncy kind of funk jam with some good extended guitar soloing.
You like Evidence?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
interesting.
Also, True Love.
Okay.
That's real catchy. We mentioned it before with Amp on there. Um, I like the rhythm guitar and the sax stuff. Really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
On True Love.
True Love.
Yeah, the riff there.
Yeah. And then, you mentioned this was a while in the works, and I noticed, I think, Jealous Eyes, which is another one I like a lot, is from at least 2020, right? It was around a while.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I just call it you ready for some 2020 funk, but I'm possibly, I'm talking about the 20s, you
Oh,
ready for some
okay.
2020 But, I should add an S to that. Are you ready for some 2020s funk?
There you go. Pluralize it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Great horns though on that one, especially.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Um, and Heredity, of course, with George. Got to mention
Yeah.
that, and the cool squiggly synthesizer, you know.
Danny.
Mm-hmm. And George doing his rapping, and it gets real jazzy too.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Um, and then Mighty Reader,
Mm-hmm.
Mighty, yeah, Reader. That one too, jazzy. Got the hip hop flavor in there, guitar soloing.
Yeah, that's quite a vast one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It covers quite a lot of
genres.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And for people that like the up-tempo stuff, you got some fast, funkier grooves on there too, like Love Check and Follow Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So all around, really solid funk record. So congratulations on that.
Thanks, thanks. Yeah,
So
we were on that for a lot of time. We were brewing on that record, tweaking and sitting on it for some time.
well, I love the real horns, I mean, you can never, I mean, Prince did some successful, synthesizers doing horn parts, but mostly, for the most part, man, you gotta have real horns in funk.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, so since I'm a sax player, you know, I got that. I'll cover real horns for forever. Don't worry. I can't bring no fake horns. Yeah, and then now we connected with Greg, and yeah, that's our thing.
And then you got a lot of interludes on that record too. What inspired you to do that?
Those were also, those were also grooves that we started with Maze. Maze is an incredible. Um, he's a real talent, producing talent. First of all, first class, incredible guitar player, and then he's just a nerd on the computer. He has this. He's very at ease when it comes to the technical side, and I'm more the watching guy there.
You're the analog guy, he's the digital guy.
No, well, yeah, possibly. I mean, I also get on the keys. But he's just like, he the whole producing side, that's his side. And yeah, the two of us, I guess we how do you call it?
Complement each other.
Yeah. What did you say again? What's the word?
Complement.
Compliment, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Have you done any
So,
shows?
yeah. Yeah, we did. So we already did two shows with Greg, featuring Greg in France. One in Paris and one at a festival.
That's right. I saw a clip. That's right. Yeah.
Uh,
I think you got a
I
video clip online.
yeah,
Yeah.
and now he's coming over end of November into December. We're doing like a 10-day, 9-day tour in France and Switzerland. So Greg is coming over end of November, and yeah, of course, the objective of my stay here is also to get the band over here. You know,
And you
that
can
would-
open for George or something like that,
that would be great. That would be great.
you know.
But, now that I've been over here for a month, this also part of my stay here is to, you know, kind of stretch my stretch my feelers and how do you call?
Get your tentacles out
Yeah,
there
my
into everything.
tentacles, that's a good one. Get my tentacles out there and see what the octopusy can reach out to, can pull aboard. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, we can get it done.
Yeah. Well, best of luck with that. I think you're
Yeah.
off to a great start. I mean, you already have those connections in Baltimore, and
Yeah.
um, I think, it's funny you mentioned, not how funny, but a couple of years ago dealing with the pandemic in Tallahassee and George, but this year is the hurricanes, down
Yeah.
that way. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That was pretty bad.
Nothing funky about a hurricane.
Say it again.
Nothing funky about a
No,
hurricane.
nothing funky about a hurricane. No.
No.
Yeah, yeah. They got to be careful down there in Florida.
So, how do you feel about the reception for Dope Frequency, and what were you hoping to accomplish, putting it together?
getting a lot of feedback from the record. But I still need to do, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done as to promoting the album. I need, it's kind of late for trying to. I don't know how if the record shop as such is still important in the States, because it would be great to have the album better distributed throughout the States.
Well, they bounced back some because of the resurgence of vinyl and the independent record stores and the record store day promotions, So it's been really good to see those independent record stores hanging in there, and
Okay.
representing, independent artists and, real, you know, albums.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they are appearing more and more. You're saying independent record.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you saw that vinyl surpassed CDs and sales again. And
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the case in the States as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
hmm
cool, cool.
Well, before I let you go, Eric, I got to pick your brain a little bit on some of your all-time favorites. So, what would be your top three all-time like P-Funk albums?
Clones, the clones of Funk, Doctor.
That's the
Yeah,
Great Horn album. Yeah.
yeah, amazing one. Let's take it to the stage. I love that one from a funkadelic perspective. That's possibly my favorite funkadelic one. And then the clones on the parlance and funk. What's it called? Placebo.
Funkadelic.
Yeah, Funkadelic versus the Placebo Syndrome. That one and the Motor Booty Affair. Motor Booty Affair is. Then the Parlet, Pleasure Principle. Yeah, all those three Parlet albums are just incredible. Have always been incredible to me. The Game Dames and Guitar Things album, not guitar wise, incredible. Uh, and then I love the Dope Dogs album, the Dope Dogs, and my favorite George Clinton album is Hey Man, Smell My Finger. Stupidly funky.
Yeah, that was right around the same time as Dope Dog. So you must have been loving that in the mid '90s. The two of those.
The 90s were incredible. I even came over here in 96 to see the second coming of the Mothership in the Central Park.
Oh, I didn't get to experience that because I was on the West Coast. Los Angeles is where I'm
Uh,
from, and
okay.
they didn't do it there.
They didn't do it over there?
No.
Okay. But you could have flown over, right? But that's quite a big jump as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is. So, and I didn't know necessarily. I had hoped they would bring it out there, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, damn. Where did they do that thing? They only did it in the Central Park?
That's the only spot I'm aware of. I mean, it wasn't like
Yeah.
they toured doing that again. It was kind of a real special thing.
Yeah, I was 25. I came over to I said I gotta see this. I heard about that. Back then we didn't have no internet. I just heard about they're doing the second coming of the mothership with the landing on in the Central Park. What? Come again? And,
Yeah. Didn't Bootsy make an appearance also?
yeah, Bootsy,
Yeah,
Bernie,
yeah.
Fred Wesley was supposed to appear, but he wasn't there.
Did you ever meet Bootsy?
I met Bootsy in Zurich in Switzerland, but never really. I the one I got in, I was very very much in touch with, and is by the way my mentor, and I completely forgot mentioning him. Is Gary Mockbone Cooper.
Mhm.
Because I started playing in 2001 before this was exactly in the moment in that time when I moved from Switzerland to London. This band out of Bavaria called Grand Slam, you can look them up. I played with them for a lot of years, and also due to the fact that they were performing with Gary Mockbone Cooper because Gary was living in Paris for quite a while. And he was performing with this German band every now and then. So I was like, damn, if I can get into that band. So and eventually ended up playing in that band. And I knew Gary from before, actually from You know, when they played 95 Bootsy played in Bern, my hometown. So I got to know Gary. And Gary was always a super cool guy, and you know, he was one of he's a very close friend, Gary Malbone Cooper, and learned loads of him in that band, vocally speaking, of him. How to arrange vocals, how to blend, you know, and all that stuff. Amazing.
Yeah, he's one of a kind vocalist too. Another one for sure.
Yeah.
With his sound. And there were several years for a while he was actually doing lead vocals with George, on their tour.
Yeah.
Um, and then Steve Boyd, and I mean they always rotate them, But
Yeah.
I know Gary performed just this past weekend, just last night. Wait, today is Saturday night. They did a brides. They did a one-off brides show.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yeah,
In,
and
in,
Gary
in
sang with them, and Blackbird played guitar, and man,
exactly.
would love to have seen that.
Oh, you weren't there? Now
No,
you're somewhere else now, right? You're
I'm
at
in
the
Charlotte.
Are
I'm
you at the
opposite. I'm
East?
opposite. So now I'm on the East Coast, which I should
Okay.
have been for the recoming of the mothership. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Too funny. What what about individual tracks? Can you pick three or five of your top?
Way up. I'm gonna reach way up and out and touch everybody.
That's cool. It's a later one. Yeah.
Maceo Parker. This plus those horns, incredible. That's Foley there, by the way. That's Foley in there. You know, that's Foley producing that stuff in there as well. And that's in Paisley Park. You can hear it. Incredible track.
I can smell my finger, right?
Saw my finger.
Yeah.
Uh, Tracks. Funkadelic. And then what's that track called? Rump of Steelskin
Yeah. Rumpelstiltskin.
on Motor Booty Affair. Down
Yeah.
down 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 down.
I love
That
that. Yeah.
that one. You know, that kind of. There we go. I mean, what else? Mm,
I thought you might pick something like Clones because of the horns, or Children of Production, or like
yeah,
Foreplay or something like that.
Foreplay. I love that track. That's a all-time classic horn track I've always played to. I even ended up playing with Fred Wesley on live. He let me play on that track, and I'm actually going on tour in 2 weeks. I'm going on tour with Fred Wesley,
Nice.
so that's going to be a challenge.
You're playing with him, or you're opening, or what's?
No, I'm playing with him.
Oh, so is it under the JB's name, the new
It
JB's?
says, yeah, Fred Wesley and the new JBs. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh
mm,
boy,
yeah,
that'll be great.
that'll be great. Yeah. So yeah, Foreplay. Here.
The Bootsy horn parts are really tight too, with of course Fred and Maceo on those.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Point of View, which I just learned in the hotel room in Tulsa, because that they took a horn line, they took that line out of Point of View and played on the horns instead of finishing off with Frank Zappa's "I'm the Slime." You know, they that's how they finished the track, but with the last maybe 8-10 years, they put that Frank Zappa theme at the end of Cosmic Slop.
right.
But
Yeah.
now they put, just recently they added this Point of View riff on it. So I had to brush up a little bit on my P-Funk horns in the Tulsa, in the Osage Casino of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And where I performed, by the way, with George. on October 11th. Yeah, they hadn't been in that town since 1983.
Wow.
So some history there.
Wow. Of course, the horns on tracks like Disco to Go,
Hmm.
that riff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I also love me tracks like Airborne. What's it called? Airborne. Is it called Airborne?
Yeah. On Cinderella
Oh,
Theory.
yeah, I love that track. I love the P-Funk All-Stars stuff too. Acupuncture is amazing. Saxophone there,
That's true. Yeah.
if I would only, you know, I'm thinking of some exclusive tracks out there that are just mind blowing, and there's so much good stuff.
So you got some new funk coming though soon. Besides Shrizz and Maze, you got another HornDogz, you said, or
We got another HornDogz in the pipeline.
so how long do you think it might be for that?
That's a good question. I'm trying to wake up the dogs. They're getting sleepy. They're getting sleepy every now and then. So, but that should we're standing on the verge of getting it on. Yeah, so that shouldn't be for long. I would say 2025 for sure.
Okay.
You know, we got George on it, and
Two tracks,
Larry.
you said. Yeah.
Yeah, the two tracks. He's on two tracks. He dropped on two tracks. Dog Life. It's called Dog Life. That's how much I can reveal.
Oh, another dog song with George on
Yeah, it's called Dog
it.
Life by the HornDogz, and we got George on it.
Wow. That's a lot of barks right there.
Yeah, and Shrizz is rapping on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Look forward to that. You any other projects in the works or
Um. Well, there might be a collaboration with the Soul Clap label. There might be a compilation coming out, with P-Funk artists, Kendra, 13 artists that they want to put out on an EP or an album, and they might be keen on coming up with some new remixes from the Dope Frequency album, especially the True Love with Amp and Heredity. George Clinton, I think they're focusing on remixing those two tracks.
okay, cool.
That should come out on the Soul Clap label.
Excellent.
Yeah.
How can viewers and listeners kind of keep up with, what you're doing?
I guess it best is Instagram, Facebook, and our website, shrizzandmaze.com. We're also on TikTok, by the way. I hate to tell you. The social media is,
Necessary evil, right?
I tell you, time consuming. But
Yeah. It's hard for us funketeers to conform to short, bites like that. We're all about spreading out, and the funk has to have space.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. I guess that's the best way to catch up with us is on social media, yeah.
Excellent. Any other messaging you want to get out there?
Shrizz and Maze on Instagram, Shrizz and Maze on Facebook, Shrizz and Maze on TikTok, shrizzandmaze.com.
There you go.
Check us out. And the album is available on Bandcamp if you're keen on getting the double vinyl. It comes with there are a few copies out there with our spaceship that you can fold together via a tutorial that is out on YouTube as well. It's called Dope Star Construction Kit. That's you just type in dopes. Our spaceship is called Dope Star, the Dope Star, and that's the spaceship you see in the video clip True Love. Did you see the video clip?
Yeah, I watched all the
Yeah.
videos. Yeah.
So yeah, that was quite of a elaborate video clip we came up with there. Um, yeah, the album you can get it either with or without the spaceship. And yeah, it's a double vinyl album, blue. This is the one, by the way. Looks like this. So gatefold, and you can get it on CD. There you go.
Very good. Hey, man, it's been great talking to you, getting to know you. And on behalf of Funketeers everywhere, thank you for keeping the funk alive, you know?
Thank you.
And
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure likewise.